Black billionaire applies for a job at his own company. What he uncovers shocks everyone. The receptionist didn't even look up when he walked in. Just a nod in the direction of a clipboard and a flat, "Sign in, have a seat." No eye contact. No smile. Nothing. Malcolm Reese, tech billionaire, venture capitalist, founder of Omnicore Systems, signed his name with a cheap plastic pen that skipped halfway through his last name. He glanced around the sterile lobby, white walls, motivational posters about synergy and grit, and a coffee station with an empty pot and a broken stirrer holder. It was the same building he'd bought 8 years ago, the same logo he'd personally designed. Yet not a single soul in the room recognized him. That was the point. For the past 6 months, Malcolm had watched complaints pile up. Not from shareholders, from janitors, interns, junior developers who never made it past HR. He didn't want reports filtered through executives. He didn't want sugar-coated summaries. He wanted truth. So he made a fake resume, shaved his beard, wore contact lenses, and submitted an application under the name Marcus Hill. Omnicore had thousands of employees across 4 campuses. He'd chosen the Detroit branch, where complaints seemed quietest. Too quiet. Now, wearing wrinkled khakis, a borrowed button-up, and a discount store jacket, Malcolm sat in the very waiting room he'd designed to inspire ambition, feeling invisible. Marcus Hill? He looked up. A man in his early 30s, hair slicked back, fake tan, expensive suit too tight at the shoulders, approached with a tablet in one hand and a protein bar in the other. "I'm Brian, HR lead." He didn't offer a handshake. "Come on back." Malcolm followed him through a maze of cubicles and cold gray halls. Employees typed robotically, no smiles, no chatter, just the hum of fluorescent lights and worn carpet. He noticed a young black woman at a copier, struggling to unjam a tray. 2 white male co-workers walked by without offering help. One even muttered, "Told her to use tray 2, not rocket science." Brian didn't hear it, or didn't care. "Interview room's here," Brian said, pointing to a glass box with no soundproofing. He tapped the tablet without looking up. "So, Marcus." "Tech support role, entry level. Not a lot of glory, but hey, it's a foot in the door." Malcolm nodded slowly. "What kind of growth opportunities are available?" Brian smirked. "We like initiative, sure, but you'll need to prove yourself. Know your place, you feel me?" He didn't wait for a response. Just slid a packet across the table. "We'll start you as a contractor, minimum wage. No benefits until your 90-day eval." Malcolm blinked, but the job posting said it was full-time with benefits. Brian shrugged. "Yeah, well, postings are suggestions, not promises." A beat of silence. "Any questions?" Brian asked, already standing. Malcolm hesitated. "Yeah, what happened to the last guy in this role?" Brian froze just a second too long. He wasn't a good fit. "We don't keep drama around here." The tone was sharp now, warning, almost. Malcolm tucked the packet under his arm and nodded. As he stood to leave, a voice called from down the hall. "Excuse me, is that Marcus Hill?" Malcolm turned. A woman with short, natural curls, dark brown eyes, and a calm but commanding presence approached. She wore no makeup, just confidence. "I'm Serena," she said. "Head of DevOps. You're the candidate for Tier 1 support, right?" Malcolm nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She glanced at the packet in his hands. "Contractor status, that's not standard. Let me see that." Brian stepped in. "Serena, this isn't your department." She raised an eyebrow. "And yet, here I am." There was something in her voice that silenced him. She took the packet, flipped through it, then looked up at Malcolm. I'm going to have our team reach out with a proper onboarding packet. If you're going to work here, we'll treat you like a human being." Brian muttered something under his breath and stormed off. Malcolm blinked. "Thank you." She studied him. "You've got a calm way about you. Reminds me of someone I used to work with, before things changed." He didn't press, just nodded. Back in the lobby, Malcolm waited at the shuttle pickup. A woman in maintenance coveralls, Latina, no more than 25, stood beside him, arms crossed. She looked exhausted. "First day?" she asked. He smiled. "Just starting." She gave a soft laugh. "Then you haven't seen how bad it gets." Malcolm's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" She glanced around. "This place used to be great. People cared. Now, promotions only go to those who kiss up. HR's a joke. They retaliate if you speak up. A guy in QA got fired last month for asking about his overtime." Malcolm frowned. "Wasn't that illegal?" She snorted. "Sure. But who's gonna listen to us? We don't have yachts." The shuttle pulled up. Malcolm helped her load her cleaning cart. As she climbed in, she turned back. "Good luck, and keep your head down." He didn't respond. He just stood there, wind catching the collar of his jacket. That last line stuck with him. Keep your head down. That's exactly what they expected. Back in his temporary apartment, Malcolm sat at his desk surrounded by files, anonymous reports, internal whistleblower emails, exit interviews full of red flags. It wasn't just a toxic culture. It was systemic. He opened his laptop and connected to a private server. On the other end, waiting, was his most trusted advisor. "You were right," he said. "It's worse than we thought." The voice on the other end was cool and calm. "How bad?" He looked down at the contractor packet, still in his lap. "They're not just ignoring the rot," Malcolm said. "They're protecting it." There was a pause. "Time to clean house?" she asked. "Not yet," Malcolm replied. "First, I want to see how deep this goes. Who's enabling it? Who's silencing it? And after that?" Malcolm closed the laptop with a quiet click. "Then I stopped pretending to be Marcus Hill." He stood, staring out the window as the skyline of Detroit flickered under the evening sky. He had built Omnicore with the belief that tech could be equalizing, liberating. But now he saw what it had become. And this time, he wasn't coming in as a billionaire. He was coming in as a storm. They thought they were just hiring a temp. They had no idea they'd just let the owner walk through the front door. Malcolm's second day started with a fire drill. Not the kind with alarms and flashing lights, but the kind where everything was already on fire, metaphorically speaking. The entire Tier 1 support floor was buzzing with chaos before 9 a.m. Servers were down, clients were irate, and the on-call manager was nowhere to be found. "Where's Chad?" one of the agents shouted across the bullpen. "Probably in his car vaping again," someone else muttered, not even hiding the frustration. Malcolm sat quietly at his workstation, watching it all unfold. No leadership, no process, just panic. A young woman named Nia was trying to juggle 3 phone calls at once, while also chatting online with a furious client from Tokyo. "Can someone please jump on ticket 9847? She shouted. "It's been open for 2 hours. Malcolm clicked into it. It wasn't even that complicated. A firewall misconfiguration. But no one else seemed to care. He began typing commands, fingers moving fast but steady. Across the aisle, a guy named Travis, mid-30s, Bluetooth earpiece permanently lodged in one ear, noticed. "You touching that Tokyo ticket?" he asked. "Yeah," Malcolm replied. Travis raised an eyebrow. "Better be careful, bro." Chad hates when new guys jump ahead. "I thought we were supposed to solve problems," Malcolm said without looking up. Travis gave a smirk. That's the problem. Malcolm ignored him, finished the fix, and hit send. Within 5 minutes, the client had confirmed the issue was resolved. Nia glanced over. "Did you just close that?" Malcolm nodded. "You saved my entire morning," she said, breathless. "Thank you." Just then, Chad finally walked in, coffee in one hand, shade still on inside. "What's the big deal?" he asked, loud and lazy. "Everybody needs to relax." Malcolm turned back to his screen, but he was listening. Chad wandered over to Travis's desk. "Anyone touch the Tokyo ticket?" Travis tilted his head toward Malcolm. "New guy jumped on it." Chad scoffed, walked over. "Hey." "Marcus, right?" Malcolm stood. "Yes. You don't just take whatever you want. We've got a system here. A system that lets critical issues sit untouched for hours?" Chad stepped closer. "Watch your tone, rookie. You want to last more than a week here. Know your place." Malcolm didn't flinch. "Is that what happened to the guy before me?" Chad blinked, thrown off. "Excuse me?" "The guy who had this desk before me. The one Brian said wasn't a good fit." A silence hung between them. "He asked too many questions," Chad finally said. "Management doesn't like that." Malcolm stared at him. There it was, blunt, unfiltered proof that truth had no place here. Later that day, in the break room, Nia pulled Malcolm aside. "Just a heads up," she said quietly. "Chad's already complaining about you. Says you're disruptive." "I solved a ticket." "Doesn't matter. Around here, it's not what you do. It's who you don't offend." Malcolm nodded. "Thanks for telling me." She hesitated. "Can I ask something?" "Sure." "You ever feel like this place was built to make people like us fail?" Malcolm looked at her. Really looked. Young, sharp, clearly overqualified for her role. Probably passed over more than once. "I don't just feel it," he said. "I see it." That night he logged into the server archive. His access as a Tier 1 support tech was limited, but not completely useless. He located the employee file for his predecessor, Eric Walker, let go 6 weeks ago for performance issues. But in the internal notes, Malcolm found something different. Eric had flagged discrepancies in ticket handling, specifically how customer issues from minority-owned businesses were deprioritized. He'd escalated it. Twice. HR had ignored it both times. A week later, his badge access was revoked without warning. Malcolm sat back in his chair, heart thudding. They weren't just inefficient. They were discriminatory. He needed confirmation, something tangible, so he pulled up the server logs again and flagged ticket tags by origin. The pattern was there, barely disguised. Minority clients waited, on average, 47% longer for resolution. Their tickets were more likely to be marked low priority, regardless of actual impact. He hit print. The next day, he dropped by Serena's office during her lunch break. She looked up from her screen, surprised. "Marcus? I need to show you something." She studied his face, sensing the shift in his tone. "Close the door." He handed her the folder. She flipped through it slowly, eyes narrowing with each page. "This is bad," she murmured. "Real bad." "You pulled this from your own access level?" Malcolm nodded. "All legitimate." "No hacks, just buried truth." She leaned back, face grim. "This kind of data, if it got out..." "They'd spin it," Malcolm said. "Call it a glitch, a misunderstanding." Serena tapped her pen against the desk. "Unless it comes with a voice." "Someone willing to say it loud." "Would you?" he asked quietly. Serena looked at him for a long moment. "Would you?" Neither of them blinked. In that shared silence, something unspoken passed between them, a spark of alliance. After he left her office, Malcolm passed Chad in the hallway. Chad gave him a smug look. "Hope you're enjoying your little crusade. Won't last." Malcolm smiled faintly. "You're right." Then his eyes turned cold. "It's just beginning." The air felt heavier the next morning. Malcolm could sense it before he even stepped through the sliding glass doors of Vanguard Systems. Something in the way the receptionist glanced up and quickly looked away. The way the elevator seemed to groan a little louder, the silence inside more loaded than usual. By the time he reached his desk, two things were waiting for him. A company-branded mug with a sticky note that read, "Welcome to the jungle," and a summons to Chad's office. No explanation, just a time. 10:15. Malcolm took a breath and sat down. Across from him, Nia raised her eyebrows like, "You good?" He gave her a tight nod. At 10:14, he knocked. "Come in," Chad's voice rang from inside, falsely cheerful. The office was too cold, not just from the aggressive AC, but from the vibe. Chad sat behind his desk, legs crossed, a forced smile stretched across his face. Travis was there too, leaning against the window like he owned the skyline behind him. "Marcus," Chad said, "thanks for coming in." "Close the door, will ya?" Malcolm did. "We wanted to have a little chat," Chad began, "about your energy." "My energy?" Malcolm repeated, slowly. "Yeah," Travis chimed in. "You've been here, 5 days? And already stirring the pot." "Word is you've been poking around old files. That's not exactly part of your job description." "I thought the job was solving problems," Malcolm said evenly. "Didn't realize that was limited to the ones no one wanted to fix." Chad's smile disappeared. "Let me be real clear with you," he said, voice dropping. "You're on thin ice. You've been skipping the chain of command. Digging through closed tickets, making others uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable or just exposed?" Malcolm said. Travis stepped forward. "You think you're smart, huh?" "I don't have to think," Malcolm replied. "I just read the numbers." Chad leaned back, steepling his fingers. "You keep pushing like this, you won't last the probation period." "And if I don't?" Malcolm asked. Chad shrugged. "We'll replace you by Monday. Same chair. Same badge. Different face." For a beat, the room fell quiet. Then Malcolm said softly, "You ever wonder what happens when the wrong person gets replaced?" Chad raised an eyebrow. "What's that supposed to mean?" Malcolm stood. "Nothing. Just a thought." He walked out before either of them could respond. Back at his desk, Nia slid him a note on a post-it. "They watching? Be careful." He nodded once. That night, after hours, Malcolm met Serena again. This time at a small Ethiopian cafe off 10th Street, far from company eyes. She looked over her shoulder twice before sitting down. "You're escalating fast," she said without preamble. "Chad's already trying to get ahead of whatever you're doing." "I know," Malcolm said. "That's why I need your help." She frowned. "This wasn't the deal. You said you wanted to observe, not start a war. I didn't start it. I just stopped pretending it wasn't already happening." Serena studied him. "You're not who you said you were, are you?" Malcolm met her eyes. "No," he admitted. There was a beat of silence. "Then who are you?" He took out a slim envelope and slid it across the table. Inside were legal documents, not copies, originals. They showed Malcolm Davis as primary shareholder of Vanguard Systems, the founder, the owner. Serena stared at them for a long time, then looked up, jaw slightly open. "You're Malcolm Davis?" she whispered. "As in, the Malcolm Davis?" "I built this company 15 years ago. Sold off just enough to make people think I stepped back. Kept just enough to still own the bones." Serena shook her head slowly. "Then why come back like this? Why pretend to be a junior tech?" "Because the higher I got, the less I knew what was really going on," Malcolm said. "I had to come down to the floor, see who was really running the place." "And who was rotting it from the inside?" Serena blinked, still processing. "You put yourself at risk. Why?" "Because people like Eric, like Nia, like you built this place with me, and you got pushed aside when the suits took over." She leaned forward. "You're planning something big, aren't you?" "I'm not just planning it," Malcolm said. "I'm in it. I need you to be too." Serena sat back, folding her arms. "What do you want me to do?" "Help me get the records they buried, the HR complaints, the promotion denials. The termination files. I know you can access them." "And if I get caught?" "You won't," Malcolm said, "because in 2 days I'm going to unseal my ownership and call an all-hands meeting. And when I do, they'll have nowhere to hide." Serena looked down at the documents again. Her face hardened. "Then we better make it count." Back at the office, Chad and Travis were on a call with Alan Browning, the company's acting president. Chad sounded nervous. "I'm telling you, this guy Marcus, he's not who he says he is. He's digging. He's bold." Alan sighed. "You're blowing this out of proportion. He's a threat. You've been saying that about anyone who questions you for 2 years." Chad's voice sharpened. "And where has that gotten us?" "Lawsuits? Turnover? You think he's just another new hire?" "I don't think so." Alan paused. "Then find out who he really is." Chad nodded. "Believe me, we're already on it." But while they were scrambling to play defense, Malcolm was preparing to go public, and by the time they realized the truth, it would be too late. The next morning, Malcolm arrived earlier than usual. The parking lot was half empty, the building still sleeping under the gray Atlanta dawn. He parked in the far corner, near the old loading dock, and entered through the maintenance door with a badge he wasn't supposed to have, but no one questioned him anymore. Upstairs, Vanguard systems buzzed with quiet tension. Word had gotten around. People didn't know what was coming, but they felt it. A storm in the wires. Malcolm moved through the corridors like a shadow, head down, observing. In the break room, he overheard 2 mid-level managers whispering. "You heard. Marcus, or whatever his name is digging into payroll records. Deep. So what? You scared of something?" "No, but he's making Chad nervous." "That makes me nervous." Malcolm walked past without a word, but the smirk tugging at his lips said plenty. Back at his desk, Nia leaned over. "You got a minute?" They ducked into an empty conference room. "Okay, spill it," she said. "What's really going on? Because I've seen you work." "You don't move like a junior anything." Malcolm looked at her for a long moment. "You trust me?" Nia frowned. "Why do I feel like I'm about to be recruited into something that could get me fired?" "Because you are," he said with a small laugh. "But it might also save this place." He told her just enough, the buried reports, the manipulation from the top, the truth about his return. "Wait, you're the Malcolm Davis." "Like the Davis? As in the founder of this place?" He nodded once. Her jaw dropped. "That's insane. I've been working under the founder for 2 weeks and didn't even know." "That was the point," he said. "I had to see it unfiltered." Nia sat back, stunned. "You have no idea how bad it's gotten. HR's just a filter. Promotions go to whoever laughs at the right jokes, not who works the hardest. I know, Malcolm said. That's why I need everything you've got. Emails, records, first-hand stories. I'm going to pull the mask off this whole place. Later that afternoon, Chad held a closed-door meeting with Alan, Travis, and a few of the board's trusted executives. He's up to something, Chad said, pacing. There's no way a guy like that gets through our interview process unless he knew exactly what to say. Alan raised a brow. You think he planted himself here? I don't think, Chad snapped. I know. He's poking around old contracts, talking to people. That's not entry-level behavior. So find out who he really is, Alan said, quietly. If this leaks, it'll be your problem. But it was already too late. Serena had pulled the internal HR logs. She brought them to Malcolm that night, inside a nondescript folder. They sat together in a corner booth of a quiet bar. These are real, she whispered. Unfiled complaints, ignored misconduct reports. Denied transfers, most of them people of color or women. Malcolm's hands clenched around the pages. And these two? She asked, tapping the top report. You should read them carefully. He did. The first was from a black engineer named Tyler Reynolds, who had developed a software module that increased efficiency by 18%. He'd been passed over for promotion 3 times in 2 years, while his work was credited to his white team lead. The second was a formal complaint filed by Nia herself 2 years ago, against Chad. Sexualized jokes, undermining in meetings, subtle retaliation. The file had a stamp. Addressed. No further action. Malcolm looked up. They silenced this. And buried it, Serena said. If you hadn't come back, it never would have surfaced. The next morning, the office crackled with whispers. Nia walked in with a calm confidence that felt different now. She wore her power on her face. Across the floor, Chad and Travis were locked in a heated conversation, trying to act casual, but failing. Meanwhile, Malcolm was meeting with Eric and 2 other longtime employees in the basement storage room. This company wasn't built to crush people, Malcolm told them. It was built to empower. You're not the guy we thought you were, Eric said. I never wanted to be, Malcolm replied. But it's time people see the truth. Tomorrow we're calling everyone in. A full staff town hall, noon sharp. You sure about this? One of the engineers asked. You're risking everything. No, Malcolm said. I'm reclaiming it. By mid-afternoon, the internal email went out from Marcus Davis requesting full staff attendance at a mandatory meeting the next day. The subject line read, Transparency and truth. You deserve both. Chad got it at the same time as everyone else. He stormed into Alan's office, livid. What is this? He's holding a company-wide meeting? Alan skimmed the email, his face darkening. Shut it down. I can't. It's already out. Then prepare a rebuttal. Damage control. And find out exactly who the hell this guy is. Chad's voice dropped. We did. Alan looked up, sharp. And? Chad tossed a folder on the desk. Inside was Malcolm's file, real name, ownership records, board documents. Alan stared at it, the color draining from his face. My God, he's the owner. Chad's voice was almost a whisper. He's been here the whole time, watching. Alan didn't say anything. He just stood up, straightened his tie, and muttered, Then we're already too late. And across the city, Malcolm stood alone in his apartment, staring out at the skyline he helped shape. Tomorrow, everything would change. The next morning, the entire 6th floor buzzed like a shaken hive. Phones rang half-heartedly. Keyboards clicked at odd rhythms. Everyone had seen the email. No one knew what it meant. At exactly noon, the staff began filing into the company's main auditorium. It was rarely used. Polished floors, sterile lighting, and a massive projector screen loomed over rows of folding chairs. Normally, it hosted shareholders or outside consultants. Today, it was for everyone else. At the front of the room stood Malcolm, still in his Marcus disguise, clean-cut but modest. Black sweater, simple watch. The man no one had truly looked at twice for weeks. The last to arrive was Alan, his face tight. He slipped into the back row beside Chad, who was already sweating through his button-down. The room went quiet when Malcolm stepped up to the mic. "Thanks for coming," he began, voice even. "I know this wasn't expected, but I think that's the problem." He paused, letting the silence settle. "I've spent the last 4 weeks inside this company as someone else. You knew me as Marcus Davis. Some of you talked with me. Some of you talked past me, and a few of you made sure I knew where I didn't belong." A ripple ran through the room. "But I wasn't here to punish. I came to learn, because I built this company, and somewhere along the way, it became something I didn't recognize." Gasps. Heads turned. Chad flinched. Alan's jaw tightened. Malcolm continued, calm but forceful. "My name is Malcolm Elijah Davis. I founded Vanguard Systems 15 years ago. And I stepped away thinking I was leaving it in capable hands." He looked directly at Alan, then Chad. "I was wrong." Camilla, his legal chief, stepped forward from the wings with a sleek tablet in hand. "We're about to show you a few things," she said. "They're hard to watch, but necessary." The lights dimmed. The projector flickered on. First came video clips, grainy security footage, internal meeting recordings, surveillance from offices and hallways. There was Chad laughing over beers, mocking a female engineer's accent. Alan in a private strategy meeting, casually suggesting delays in bonuses to motivate urgency. Snippets of Nia being interrupted, talked over, and dismissed in at least 5 meetings, then being written up for communication issues. Then a clip from the elevator camera. Serena, hands full, asked for help. Chad brushed past her with a smirk. "You should carry less if you can't keep up." Another video showed Travis shredding a printed complaint form. Then whispering to HR, "She'll quit eventually. Just let her." Gasps turned into murmurs. People covered their mouths. Nia sat near the front, frozen, her eyes brimming but unblinking. Malcolm stepped forward again. "You've all felt it. The quiet rot, the things that never got said or got buried, you didn't imagine it." He clicked a remote. The next slide listed over 40 employee complaints, names redacted but dates intact, each marked closed, not urgent, or inconclusive. Camilla spoke again. "We traced every ignored complaint, and then we talked to those people." She gestured, and from the side of the room a few employees stepped out. Tyler Reynolds, Serena Cho, Ava Davis. Even a former janitor named Hector, who had been wrongfully terminated after reporting misconduct. They stood in a silent line. The room watched. "You told us we mattered," Ava said. "Then you let people like Alan tell us otherwise." Alan stood abruptly. "This is a witch hunt." "You edited that footage. None of that. It's raw," Camilla cut in sharply. "Time-stamped." "Chain of custody intact. The only edits were for clarity, not content." Chad muttered. "This isn't legal. This is a setup." Malcolm stepped toward him, slow and deliberate. "You set up your own downfall the moment you decided power meant impunity." Then he turned back to the staff. Vanguard was built on innovation, on integrity. But that only matters if it applies to every level, not just the boardroom. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a stack of letters. "Effective today. Several members of this leadership team are being suspended pending full review. HR is under audit. And we're forming a new oversight board, composed of actual employees. Alan stepped forward, shaking with rage. You can't. I can, Malcolm said calmly. And I am. The lights came up. The staff looked around at one another, stunned. Hope flickered behind exhausted eyes. As Alan stormed out, someone began to clap. Then another. Then the room erupted into full applause, raw, cathartic. Malcolm didn't smile. He just nodded once, stepped down from the stage, and walked into the crowd. Nia caught up to him. You really did it, she whispered. No, he replied. We did. 2 days after the meeting, the air inside Vanguard HQ shifted like a storm front. Conversations lowered to whispers when Malcolm passed by. Some looked at him with awe, others with fear, but no one looked through him anymore. HR had started reprocessing the complaints. Camilla and her legal team were fielding calls nonstop from employees finally brave enough to speak. And in the middle of all that, Alan Brooks was nowhere to be seen. But that didn't mean he was gone. Malcolm sat alone in the break room around 10 p.m., sipping coffee from a paper cup, staring out at the skyline. Camilla walked in, tablet in hand, her face unreadable. He's been calling board members all day, she said, sitting across from him, trying to convince them you're unstable. Saying you manipulated the system. Malcolm leaned back, expression calm but calculating. And are they listening? She gave a half smile. Some. But not enough. He looked toward the glass, then asked, What's our exposure? Camilla hesitated. He's got friends in the parent company, and there's chatter that he's planning to force a vote, questioning your ability to lead, especially after how public you went. Malcolm stayed quiet, eyes narrowing. Then he set the cup down slowly. Let him. Camilla raised a brow. You want to walk into a trap? No, he said. I want him to build it, decorate it, and invite his friends. Then I'll walk in and burn it down. The next morning, the tension snapped. A company-wide memo went out from the board of directors. Emergency session scheduled. Review of leadership conduct and stability. Behind the language was a clear message. Alan had rallied enough power to challenge Malcolm's position, not because he had proof, but because he had fear. And fear spreads. In the corner office on the 15th floor, Alan paced behind a wide desk, barking into the phone. I don't care what the media says, he snapped. He's erratic. He infiltrated his own company like a damn spy. That's not leadership, that's a liability. On the other end, someone tried to calm him. No, listen, Alan said. If we don't act now, the next thing you know, he'll be handing stock options to the cleaning crew. He paused. Yes, I've already spoken to Leonard and Chen. If you flip the votes, we push it through. Malcolm is out. He hung up and leaned on the edge of the desk, his breath shaky. For the first time, the confident mask cracked. Meanwhile, in the data center sublevel, Malcolm stood with Nia, Jordan from facilities, and Avery, the youngest member of the finance team. They looked exhausted, but determined. Are you sure we want to do this? Avery asked. This isn't a protest. It's an ambush. No, Malcolm corrected. It's the truth. And it's overdue. He pointed to the wall of monitors Camilla had set up. These are real stories, real people. This company was never supposed to be a machine that chewed through its own employees. He turned to Nia. You said once you felt invisible here. She nodded quietly. He looked around at all of them. I need you visible now. I need you loud. Jordan grinned. Let's make some noise then. Later that night, While the office lights dimmed and the elevators ran mostly empty, an anonymous file began circulating through the internal network. Subject line: What you weren't supposed to see. Inside the zip file were a dozen video clips, testimony recordings, and anonymized transcripts. Footage of Alan berating junior employees. Chad lying in HR debriefs, memos marked urgent with big red stamps that were quietly shelved. Employees across departments started watching. Then sharing, then posting. By midnight, Vanguard's private Slack channels were lit up. So was Twitter. The hashtag Zhao built by us began trending. In a corner office, Alan opened his laptop and froze. The file stared back at him, his face, his voice, his words. He slammed the lid shut, then knocked a glass of bourbon off his desk, watching it shatter without a blink. Back on the main floor, Malcolm stood with Camilla, watching everything unfold in real time. "You think it's enough?" she asked. He exhaled slowly. "No, but it's a start." She nodded. "You ready for the vote?" He gave a tight smile. "I was born ready for people not to believe in me. But this time, they'll remember why they should have." He turned away, heading toward the elevator. At the end of the hallway, Nia waited with a quiet strength in her stance. "They won't see it coming," she said. Malcolm paused, glanced back at the office floor, once a place of silence, now filled with buzzing tension and hidden fire. "They don't need to," he said. "They just need to watch it happen." The boardroom was colder than usual. 12 chairs circled a long glass table, their polished edges reflecting the tension in the room. Most of the board members wore carefully measured expressions, eyes scanning the documents before them, fingers drumming lightly on leather folders. At the head sat Leonard Chase, chairman of the board. Next to him was Alan Brooks, who looked calm, almost smug, his hands steepled as if this vote was already won. "Let's call this session to order," Leonard began. "This meeting was scheduled to review concerns surrounding Mr. Malcolm Rourke's recent conduct, and to consider a vote on his continued leadership." A few heads turned subtly as the door creaked open. Malcolm walked in without a word. He wasn't wearing a suit. No tie, just a dark gray sweater, black slacks, and an expression of pure steel. Camilla followed behind him, tablet in hand, her hair pulled tight in a braid that screamed business. Malcolm didn't sit. He walked slowly around the table, his hands in his pockets. Alan watched him with a smirk. "Late to your own hearing, Malcolm?" "No," Malcolm replied smoothly. "Right on time. You just started the wrong meeting." Leonard raised an eyebrow. "Then, by all means, enlighten us." Malcolm stopped behind an empty chair and rested both hands on the backrest. "You're here to judge whether I've acted out of line, whether going undercover in my own company was reckless, whether I'm emotionally fit to lead." He let the silence settle. "Fine, let's talk about recklessness." He nodded at Camilla. She tapped the tablet. The screen behind them lit up. Surveillance footage played silently. Alan laughing in the lounge with Chad, mocking the diversity hires, HR execs shredding documents, employees being denied promotions without merit. Voices filled the room, recorded meetings, whistleblower testimony, audio files with Alan's unmistakable voice saying, "No one cares what a janitor thinks." The room shifted, backs straightened, throats cleared. Malcolm didn't blink. "Before you question my leadership, ask yourselves why I had to do this in the first place, why I couldn't trust any report, any department head, any director to tell me the truth. Because this company wasn't just blind, it was complicit." Alan barked a laugh, trying to recover. "This is your defense? A media stunt. Illegally obtained files?" Malcolm's eyes narrowed. Every employee signed a data access agreement, and I'm the majority shareholder. Legally and ethically, I have the right to know what kind of culture bears my name. Leonard leaned forward. Mr. Brooks, did you authorize any of these cover-ups? Alan waved a hand. These are taken out of context. Camilla stepped forward, her voice razor-sharp. No, they're not. These are time-stamped, geotagged, verified. We've cross-referenced complaint files with actual outcomes. Your signature, Mr. Brooks, is on every single one. Alan's face tightened. You think this little ambush changes anything? Malcolm took a slow breath. No, but this might. He laid a single sheet of paper in front of Leonard. A motion, signed by 7 of the 12 board members. To remove Alan Brooks from the position of Chief Operations Officer, effective immediately. Alan's face went pale. You traitors, he hissed, standing. Leonard remained calm. Alan, the motion has quorum. You can step down voluntarily or security will be called. Alan looked around, searching for someone, anyone, to back him, but no one met his eyes. He threw up his hands. You people think this is justice? It's a circus. Malcolm stepped in. No, it's accountability. Alan stormed out, the door slamming behind him. Silence lingered like smoke. Then Leonard turned to Malcolm. Is that all? Malcolm shook his head. Not quite. He gestured, and the door opened again. 3 employees walked in, Nia from customer support, Jordan from facilities, and Avery from finance. They've seen the worst of this company, and they kept showing up anyway. Today, they're here to speak, not as witnesses, but as leaders. Jordan stepped forward, nervous but firm. We just want to be heard, for once. He told his story, about watching a coworker get fired for missing a shift due to a family emergency, while others got away with office affairs and expense fraud. Nia followed, voice trembling, recalling the racial microaggressions she endured and how HR always said they'd circle back. By the end, the room felt smaller, quieter, realer. Malcolm finished. This company isn't saved by firing one man. It's saved by fixing the system that protected him. Leonard nodded slowly. Then let's rebuild it. As the board filed out one by one, Camilla turned to Malcolm. You think it worked? He glanced out the window. It's not about if it worked. It's about whether we keep going. The sun cast a warm glow across the glass exterior of Rourke Global's headquarters. For the first time in years, it wasn't the marble floors or sleek elevators that drew attention. It was the air, lighter, clearer, as if the building itself was breathing again. Inside the main atrium, employees gathered for what had only been described in the internal memo as a town hall for the future. There was no stage, no podium, just a circle of chairs arranged around a quiet space, and in the center of it stood Malcolm Rourke. He wore no designer label. No Rolex. Just a dark navy sweater, a pair of jeans, and the calm, assured posture of a man who had lived through fire and walked out unburned. As the crowd settled, Malcolm raised his eyes and scanned the faces around him. People who used to flinch when he walked by. People who had once been ignored, dismissed, or stepped over entirely. I didn't bring you here to make a speech, he began. I brought you here to listen. Silence. But not empty. It was the kind of silence that leans forward. I spent the last 2 months pretending to be someone I used to be. A man working graveyard shifts to pay for night classes, mopping floors just to survive. I put the uniform back on because I needed to see what this company had become without me watching. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. And what I found, was worse than broken systems or bad management. It was rot, invisible rot, growing under the weight of silence and unchecked ego. He looked around the room, but I also found something else. I found you. I found people still showing up, still trying, still caring, even when this place gave them every reason not to. Avery from finance, seated near the front, lowered her eyes, blinking hard. Nia squeezed her hand gently. Malcolm took a slow breath. You've heard me talk. Now you'll see what comes next. He turned and gestured toward Camilla, who stood by a digital display board. With a tap of her tablet, the new initiatives rolled onto the screen behind her. A whistleblower program funded and operated independently of HR. A committee of employees, elected by their peers, to oversee hiring and promotion fairness. Reinstatement of unjustly terminated staff, with public apologies and full benefits restored. Mental health counseling and legal support for employees who'd filed discrimination complaints. And perhaps most significantly, a rotating leadership mentorship program. No titles, no hierarchies, just knowledge shared across every department. A wave of murmurs spread through the room. Not disbelief. Hope. Malcolm continued softer now. This company used to stand for innovation, for possibility. Somewhere along the way, we let power distort that. But starting today, we remember who we are. He nodded at Camilla again. Bring her in. The room turned. Walking slowly through the back doors was a woman in a dark green blazer and a cane tapping beside her. Ms. Lila Jefferson, once the oldest receptionist at Rourke Global. Fired by Alan Brooks for underperformance. She stood in front of the room with her chin raised, eyes shining. I was told I was too slow, too old. Too much trouble, she said, her voice raspy but proud. Now I've been invited back to train the next generation, and I'm telling you this. If you think people like me are easy to replace, you've never seen what we carry. The applause came like thunder. Some stood, some cried, all clapped. Malcolm waited for silence. I'm not a perfect man, and this isn't a perfect company. But it can be honest, and that, more than anything, is how we build legacy. The meeting ended with no formal wrap-up, no PR scripts. People stayed, talking, connecting, planning. As the crowd dispersed, Camilla walked up beside Malcolm. That felt different, she said quietly. It was, he replied. They stood at the glass, watching as employees chatted freely near the coffee stations once ruled by whispers. Jordan, now a department lead, laughed with a former mail clerk. Avery was explaining a spreadsheet to a group of interns. Even Lila leaned against the wall, cane at her side, surrounded by eager new hires hanging onto every word. Camilla smiled. You think they'll remember all this? Malcolm turned to her. No, I think they'll make sure it never has to happen again. That evening, the company's YouTube channel uploaded the full town hall. Within hours, the video climbed into trending. In the final shot, Malcolm stood in the dimming light of the atrium, his silhouette cast long across the floor. He turned to the camera, speaking directly now, not just to employees, but to anyone who'd ever been overlooked. You don't need to be a billionaire to demand change. You don't need power to speak the truth. But if you do have power, and you don't use it to protect the people who trusted you, then you don't deserve it. He paused, then added, If this story made you feel something, share it. Speak it. Because the world changes one voice at a time. The screen faded to black. White text appeared. This isn't just a story. It's a reminder. Don't let silence win. Then quietly, the channel's message. Like, share, subscribe. For more stories that matter,